Hello there guys, this is Teacher Krishna and welcome to our next class for the third unit. Of course, this is a class that is part of BHAP School and of course it will be a class for 9th BYS. Just like you know, our subject is biology and today we are working on week number 22. Thank you a lot for coming and of course thank you a lot for continuing doing a great effort into completing all of the assignments that I have prepared for you. So let's continue and let's go over our presentation today. First of all, remember to have your notebook with you in order to make today's summary. That is very important because remember that we are not going to work anymore on digital sources but on physical sources. Parts of your summary to include. Remember to add the date, our ending mind, the title, summary, and of course some extra decoration. Keep in mind that we are still applying the format from the school. So remember that the title, the ending mind, as well as the subtitles must be written down with red and blue. And the rest of the summary, of course, has to be written down with red and black. So when you have these materials ready, you can come back and of course we can move up with our video. Alright, so today we're going to be studying lesson number 1, human inheritance. You are going to find this topic from pages 134 to 139. Make sure to have your book with you as well so you can complete everything successfully. The ending mind for today is this one. Students will be able to identify patterns in the inheritance of blood type and the compatibility among parents. Alright, so make sure to write down the ending mind in your notebook and we can continue with our presentation. Here you have a small summary of the activities that you need to complete today. Number 1, watch this video and make a summary, which is basically what you are doing right now. Number 2, read pages 134 to 139 and complement your summary. So notice that I included most of the information from the chapter in here, but I always like to reinforce the reading skills of my students. So if I'm not mistaken, in the last couple of pages are the ones that you need to take a look at. And of course, use them to complement your summary. Right, number 3, complete the book's exercises. So just like I told you last week, we need to start working on the book's exercises again. So we are going to be having half of the exercises before and half of the exercises during the mid-session. So first of all, pages 134 and 137, well, 137, have to be completed before the mid-session. And pages 138 to 139 will be completed during the mid-session, okay? So take this into account and please take advantage out of the time that you have before the mid-session and during the mid-session so you don't have homework later on in the afternoon. I really don't like homework, so I consider that if you work during the time that we have already stipulated for you, you are not going to have any, right? Then number 4, conduct a small investigation about the inheritance of blood type. So after you make your summary, after you complete the exercises, just include a brief investigation about the inheritance of blood type. Of course, I don't want only 2 lines or 3 lines. I want a little bit more information about, let's say, what blood types there are, which ones are compatible, which ones are not compatible, why are they compatible, and what happens if two parents that have incompatible blood type have a baby. What is going to be the result? So investigate a little bit more about it, all right? Then number 5, take pictures of your work and share them with your teacher. So something very important is that I'm still trying to find out if working totally with Educativa or with my email. So I will confirm if you send me those pictures in Educativa or to my email during the mid-session that we have, okay? So I will be telling you about it in a couple of minutes. Right, so let's start with our topic. We are studying human inheritance. Here we have an example of what inheritance can cause in people. Some of us, just like me in Guatemala, are very tall, and some other people are a little bit shorter but that's all because human inheritance. And we all have different traits that were inherited from our parents. So I can tell you, I inherited the color of eyes from my father, as well as the color of my skin from both my parents. I inherited the color of my hair from both my parents, and I can continue with many other characteristics. Single genes with two alleles. The gene has two alleles. They can be dominant or recessive. So each one of the genes that give us all of the traits that we have are going to be composed by two alleles. So, well, at least in this case, in the single gene with two alleles. So what's going to happen is that if we have one dominant and one recessive, of course, the dominant is going to be present in the trait. Now we have single genes with multiple alleles, and several alleles can make up a trait. Notice that people can only carry two of those alleles. So something very important to notice is that when many alleles are recombining in order to create a new gene, then the allele is going to change. So even though there are many, they are going to recombine to be in the gene at the end. So yeah, I can give you the example of my sister. So my mother has green eyes and my father has brown eyes, but the color of her eyes are like in the middle of both of them. So she had like light brown eyes, like honey eyes, let's say. So it's like a point in between. And of course, it will be an example of single genes with multiple alleles, in which all of the alleles that are recombined to determine the trait in my sister's eye colors just recombined in the gene that determine her eye colors are going to be only two. Then we have traits controlled by many genes. Height is determined by at least 4 different genes. That is something very important. There are some of your traits or characteristics that are determined by several genes, not only by only one. All right, and what are the functions of the sex chromosomes? And this is something very important to notice. So you need to notice that humans have only let's say, well, it's one pair of chromosomes that are going to determine if you are a female or if you are a male. And inside those, there are going to be just two types of alleles that determine the sex of a person, which are going to be X and Y. So if at the end your organism has both X's, X, then you are going to be a female. But if your organism has an XY, then you are going to be a male. It is as simple as that. So the human body contains 23 pairs of chromosomes for a total of 46 chromosomes. It is something very important to notice. Remember that we studied the process of meiosis. And in the sex cells, which were in the eggs and of course the sperms, each one of those gametes will only have 23 chromosomes. When they recombine, then we will get to the total amount of 46. Sex chromosomes are just one pair of these. They determine if a person is male or female. So out of those 23 pairs, one of them is going to determine if we are male or female, just like it's shown right there in the picture, with XX and XY. Female chromosomes will be XX and male chromosomes will be XY. Male determine the sex of the offspring. There are equal chances for both sex to appear in the next generation. So when a couple of parents have a new baby, they have exactly the same chances of having a girl than having a boy. But there are some interesting cases in which parents end up having, I don't know, like 20 girls and one boy, or 7 boys and 1 girl. It's just a matter of luck, I will say, sometimes, because they have the same chances of having a female or a male. And the only organisms that can determine the sex will be us, will be male. And it cannot be female because they only have XX. And in order to have a baby boy, you need XY, which only come from the chromosomes of male. And actually, just these two letters and this pair of chromosomes can determine like great and different characteristics of people. So this is me, your incredibly handsome teacher, Teacher Krishna. So in my genetical code, I have XY, which makes me a male. And but thanks to technology right now, we can actually see what will happen if we would have had the other pair of genes. So what would I look like if I had XX, if I were a female? Ta-da, I will look like this. Incredibly pretty, I will have to say. So yeah, because of this small change in one of the letters of our genetical code, many differences can happen. Like male usually have thicker veins than female. So in case they both have the same accident and they are losing blood, it's most likely for female to survive because they will lose less blood due to their small veins. And if we talk about the amount of muscular mass, then male are going to have way more muscular mass than a female. And those are just two differences that we can observe in between both of them. All right, and let's go with the last part of our presentation. We have the sex-linked genes. It is another name that can be given to X and Y chromosomes. They are sex-linked genes because they determine the sex of a person. There are certain traits that are linked to these chromosomes, such as the red-green color blindness. So there are certain things that are connected to the sex-linked genes. Like I mentioned, like if you're a male, you're going to have way more muscular mass, and you're going to have thicker veins. But if you are a female, and you're going to have less muscular mass and you're going to have thinner veins. They are both characteristics that are linked to the sex of the person. And Y chromosomes are smaller than X chromosomes, which is translated in X chromosomes containing more genetical information. And this is something very important because if you can observe the picture that I showed you before, the X chromosomes were larger than the Y chromosomes. So, of course, the Y chromosomes contain less information, so they need to be linked up to the information that is in the X chromosome in order to have more genetical information. And there might not be a matching allele from the X chromosome to the Y chromosome. As a result, any allele on the X chromosome, no matter if it is recessive, it will determine the rate in the male who inherits it. Which means that, let's say that there is one recessive allele in the X chromosome. So it doesn't matter if it is recessive or dominant. It will appear in the offspring because sometimes it will not find something to match up in the Y chromosome. It will be different if the pair is XX because they both will have more genetical information to pair up with. So there will be more variations in there. Okay, guys, so thank you a lot for coming to today's lesson. It was something very interesting today. And of course, I'm very glad to have you all here with me right now. I will be seeing you around in a couple of minutes. And just remember to go back to the activities section that I showed you in the first part of the presentation so you can notice what exactly you have to do today. So goodbye, guys. Always take care of yourselves, and I will be seeing you around.